Hi guys, I'm back again with another update on my artillery calculator, FoxFall. We've made the overlay a lot easier to use instead of using a inbuilt map, and it should let you get sighted in seconds. I'm very excited to share it with you. Let's get started. So obviously there's still the web interface. You can still open it if you host your own server. You can use my GitHub project to do so. You simply clone this, you run yarn and yarn run serve, and you'll be good. As you can see here, we've got some instructions for you. There's also instructions on how to use it, but I'm going to go through it now, so don't worry about that. Okay, so you can either open it on the web interface or you can download the application, which is an overlay. You can install it, or you can download the standalone zip archive and extract it and run it from anywhere on your PC. Cool. So on the web interface, we've got the usual grid. You can now customize it to have dashes or not, to change the line width, etc. All of these settings are saved. You can still click on sync and enter a server address and a sync code to sync your session with other users across the internet so that they can also use your firing solutions. As you can see, I'm just going to make the units and the settings smaller. If I reload this page, it'll get the settings because it's on the same computer. If it was a different computer, you wouldn't share settings, don't worry. Okay, so you can create units. By default, a unit that is not positioned from another one is draggable now, so you can move it around. These grids are made to mimic the map of FoxHole. So you can see in FoxHole, you've got this 3x3 section of smaller cells. That is what this is intended to represent. Each cell on the FoxHole map is 125 meters by 125 meters, and the smaller cells are 41 point something. Unfortunate that there's a fraction there, but there you have it. So you can use the grid cells to line up your RT if you want. I generally prefer to directly spot or use the overlay. Okay, so we're all familiar with the web interface already, so I'm going to jump right into using the overlay itself. I'm just going to launch FoxFall, and you'll see an icon appears in the bottom right. I open the game, and it's still there. If I click on the icon, it will bring up the FoxFall overlay. It's basically the same as the web interface, except transparent. Cool. And how it's intended to be used is you go onto your map, and you would line up the grids. And then the distances on the overlay would be the same as distances in game. Historically, this was quite difficult to do. You'd have to put one of the corners onto another corner like so, and then keep your mouse there, and then scroll to try and make it line up like this. And then you could use shift to scroll slower and control shift to scroll even slower, and it was a whole process, right? And that took a lot of time, which is inconvenient. So now we have this calibrate grid button. You click there, and the grid for FoxFall disappears. So you can just focus in on your map grid. Your mouse becomes a crosshair, and you just drag over one of these cells like so, and it lines up your grid for you. It zooms so that they're the right size, and it translates that it fits over what you selected. It also resets your rotation so that you're facing north if you weren't already. You can lock the viewport controls over here. By default, the overlay will lock rotations. You cannot rotate because obviously you can't rotate the FoxHole map. If I were to enable it, I could then rotate like so. You'll see we've changed the compass. Okay, and I'll just line up my grid again. And lock rotation. Cool. So getting your grid lined up is much faster now. And you can then simply add a unit, put it where your gun is. You'd obviously have intel of your artillery gun. And then you'd tell it this is an artillery piece. Feature that we've added is now you can select which artillery you're firing. So I can click this down arrow and select the shell that I'm firing first. These are 150 mils. Cool. Now the platform drop down appears, and I can select the Thunderbolt, which is what I'm firing. And you'll see while I have this unit hovered or selected or pinned, its range is visible. If you were to change your wind, the range would move as well. So if the wind is blowing to the west, then obviously you can reach further on the west. So if I go into wind, you'll see all of the angle inputs now have a compass that appears when they're focused. And you can simply click on the compass in order to input a degree. And I can just say the wind is pushing 50 meters, and you'll see my range indicator changes. Awesome. Add another unit, put it where I want to shoot. Say this is a target, and we get a firing solution. This is with the wind added in. So the actual distance from here to here is probably about 350, but we've shaved off 50 of that. We're actually aiming over here so that the wind can push the shell where we're aiming. Awesome. When you want to shell an enemy base or counter-artillery, for example, it's very important that your position is as far away as possible while still being within range so that you're safe. Or if they have no defenses, then you want to be as close as possible to reduce spread. Now when you select a target, you can also select how you want to shoot that target. So let's say I want to shoot this with a 120mm Coronades. And it will show you where you can place the gun that would be able to shoot this target after wind adjustments. So I could put a artillery 120mm Coronades, and if I pin this target, you'll see no matter where I put it, I can always hit, so long as I'm in that green band. Cool. Now, obviously, when you're not in the overlay, you want to be able to play the game, and that generally involves your map moving around a fair bit, and then everything gets messed up and you're no longer lined up. Now I want to shoot at a target over here, and I've zoomed my map and I've moved around. What do? Simply open the overlay, recalibrate the grid, drag like so. But now it's moved to this cell and zoomed it so that it matches my underlying map, but I'm not aligned, right? My artillery's in the wrong place. You can move the viewport with the arrow keys, right, left, up, and down by 1 pixel for fine adjustments to make sure your grid lines up. But if you hold shift, it moves them over by 1 cell. So it's super easy to get my RT back in position. I can then make a new unit, say that it's a target, put it where I want to shoot. It remembers the wind that I put in before, unless I click reset, and we immediately are lined up. Obviously, when you're firing at an enemy, you often won't know where they are on your map. So what you want to do in that scenario is close the overlay, grab yourself some binocs, and run off into the field to do spotting. Now, normally you have to track your position relative to the gun, and FoxFall does have some utilities for doing that. You can chain a bunch of positions together. But with the overlay, it's a lot easier. So normally I'd have to now look back at the gun and say, okay, my distance is 100, my azimuth is 15. Go to the overlay, select my gun, make a spotter from Charlie to Alpha, 115, and now it knows where I am. And then I would look into the field again and find some other place that I'm going to go and stand or look at in the future and put that in from my spotting position, etc., and chain and get an accurate position in the field so that we can sight in our RT. But we don't have to do that anymore. I simply run off into the field and keep going until I can see whatever it is that I want to shoot at. So let's shoot at this dock. Right, open my map, put it so that I can view my gun and myself, calibrate my grid, make sure my gun is on the gun. Then, instead of having this target over here, I'm going to create a spotter, put it on myself. I'm going to look down my binoculars. I'm going to track down the target. 100, 139. And I have a firing solution. I'm just going to reset the wind in this case because I haven't actually verified that measurement. Awesome. You definitely do want to put your wind in some initial measurement. So you want to go like southeast or whatever after you've seen a flag. You'll generally find that shells for 120 and 150 are pushed approximately 25 meters per wind level. So do something like that, right? And then you fire an initial shell. Great. And hopefully you hit. That'd be nice. But let's say you don't. Let's say you've got some inaccuracy, or you misread the wind, or you didn't align your grid right, whatever. It doesn't matter. So you're aiming over here, and your shells are landing over here. All you do is you look at, on average, where your shells are landing. Let's say 81, 163. Over here. 81, 163 is where my shells are landing. This is a landing zone unit. Landing zone units have a button at the bottom, adjust wind. When you do that, it takes the distance from where your shells are landing to your target, and it says, add that to the wind. Now you get some new firing measurements, and you just hit. You don't have to worry about how you were wrong, or why you were wrong, or what the wind actually is. You just say, I was aiming at this position, and I didn't hit it. I was landing here. Please make it hit. And the artillery calculator will do it for you. Cool. So I'm just going to copy this code right over here, and I'm going to put it into close the overlay. Here, and you'll see it has synced up. So our gunner can open this interface, and he can get his firing arcs and firing ranges and everything and see what we're doing on his phone, using Google Chrome preferably, all works. And you don't have to announce your firing measurements anymore. You can pin a gun to just keep everything about it visible at all times. And if you're on a phone and you don't want to worry about the viewport, you can just tick automatic camera targeting and zoom, and it will just make sure that everything is always visible no matter what. Alternatively, if you want an even simpler interface, you can simply click on Open Gunner Interface. You pick which gun you are and which target you are, because you can create multiple of those, and it will give you the firing solution. Additionally, at the bottom there, we've got this Ready to Fire button. If you set it Ready to Fire, then it will synchronize to all of your artillery crew and say, in a green border, our measurements are ready. I generally prefer to use Discord for that. It's a lot more satisfying telling them to shoot and watching the enemy die, but it's there if your comms are very full. Awesome. I think that's the gist of what we've added this last iteration. Thank you for joining me.